will work properly and that the sound is clear. And beyond the sound, I also changed the video camera. Working with some lighting here, but it's not really the way I want it to be. It's a little bit too bright for what I need, but I guess it'll do the job for now. How's everyone today? I'm just checking the settings. Just want to make sure everything's working okay here. Seems like the sound is working, so if you guys hear me okay, give me a thumbs up. If there's anything that doesn't seem right, let me know. I had a couple of issues with the software recently. I was glitching after a while, and I don't know if it's just a hardware issue, maybe running out of disk space or whatever, but hopefully that doesn't happen today. I see a lot of people are online this morning, nice and early like usual. Thank you for joining me. Nice to see everyone. So I just wanted to say, obviously today is our 32nd live show. So that's pretty exciting for me. I'd like to do more of these shows if I had more free time, but it's just lately it's been like crazy for me. I've been so busy. I haven't even had time to finish off some demo videos that I've been working on. Hopefully I'll have some more time, but it's funny. It's just like there's so many things happening all of a sudden. Um, Recording songs, mixing songs for my band, doing a lot of live recording with them as well. So I'm getting things set up, a lot of things to coordinate there. Still recording my demos, gear demos and whatnot. Need to finish a lot of those that are in the pipeline already. And other than that, I've been also recording some live events behind the scenes with some special guests for you guys, which are gonna be coming online soon, I hope. My good friend Buddha, my friend Matt from Monty's Guitars all the way in London, and a few other people that I'll be trickling out for you guys. I think you guys will enjoy those videos because there's a lot of great information that we're sharing with those, and we're obviously talking about gear and whatnot. So I think you guys will enjoy that as well. So stay tuned for all of that stuff also coming your way. How's everybody doing today? I wanted to just say a quick word regarding one of our sponsors for today's show. I'll just put them online here. You can see the link on this side. Amplifiedcovers.com is the sponsor of this video. I want to say a big thank you for them for sponsoring my channel. Excuse me, I got something in my throat. They make fantastic covers, and if ever you're looking for something specific for your gear, for your heads, for your amplifiers and whatnot, they can do any kind of custom covers for you. They sent me a really beautiful cover for my Black Star with some really nice piping on it as well. And I highly recommend you go take a look at their website if you're looking for that kind of stuff to protect your gear. They also will do custom colors. So if you want to have, custom vinyl to match your amplifier or the piping to match your amplifier, they're able to do that. And just send them the dimensions of what you need and they'll be able to make it. And they have a whole bunch of sizes that are already geared for all kinds of different types of amplifiers so that you can get your cover very quickly. There's nothing worse than ruining an amp or, getting it wet or, if you're carrying it with you, you want to protect it. So I wanted to protect my amp since it's brand new. So I reached out to them and super guys to work with. So go check out their website and encourage them by, placing an order if you need something with them. Beyond that, what else did I want to say this morning? So the question of the day, well, not really the question, but the topic that I'd like to discuss with you guys today is guitar issues, because I often get a lot of questions regarding issues that people have with their guitars, and this is something that I see over and over again. So I know that there's a lot of common issues that people do experience with their guitars. And if there's stuff like that that you want to talk about today, I'll give you whatever knowledge I can give you and what experience I've gained over the years in terms of working on my guitars. And maybe we can, help a few people that have issues and are having issues or might eventually have issues with their guitars. So if you have any of those questions, that'll be the main focus today. And we'll talk about other things as well as recording and guitars and all kinds of stuff that I have uh, on my radar this morning for you guys. But first, let me say good morning to everyone that is online today. We have a few people here already. Jack Collins. Good morning, Ed. Good morning, Jack. We have early risers, I swear. You guys are impressing me. Cool Tunes Made Easy. Good morning to you. Good morning to, what do we have? Alan is here as well. Fat Philosopher, Gospel of Mark, Strat 5150. The Nye, good morning. Bruce, good morning to you as well. Guys, I really do appreciate you guys tuning in on my channel. I really do like the Quicksilver's also in the house. Hey, coincidence. I didn't plan on you being here, Quicksilver, but hey, see that? Great minds think alike. Victor's also in the house. Good morning, Victor. Alfonso Rodriguez. Hello, my friend. How are you? And Alexis Guitars from Germany. How are you doing, man? Nice to see you here. And Wayne McDonald as well. So let's get started. Let's get started on some of the questions. I want to go through as many as we can because, an hour goes by really easy, and I know you guys are busy and have other things to do today. So let's get started and see what kind of questions you have regarding gear or guitars. And it's not necessarily just guitars. You can also ask me any questions you might have regarding things like, your amp, your pedals, whatever. All right. So Jack says that he's proud of himself because he's done his first fret leveling, crowning, and polishing, and it turned out perfect. Awesome. Jack, the main thing is to get over the initial fear of doing stuff. Obviously, you don't want to mess up a really nice guitar if you don't know what you're doing. But if you have an older guitar, or even like a spare parts neck, those are great to work on. If you have one lying around, for example, sometimes there's people getting rid of stuff for like peanuts, and they're not necessarily brand names or anything like that. Those are great for working on. So if you can grab a couple of those whenever they do pop up, those are great things to use to learn how to actually do fret leveling, crowning, and everything else, and polishing. So now that you know how to do it, you're only going to get better from here. I mean, really the tricky part about doing a fret leveling is making sure that you don't go too far too fast, because once you've taken off material, it's very hard to put it back, and you have to know when to stop. Obviously, to have a perfectly flat leveling file, if you don't have one, you don't always have to buy stuff. You can often make your own stuff as well. And that's what I do most of the time. I mean, before people like Stu Mac were around, people were making their own tools. So there's no shame in doing that. But you have to make sure that it is, proper so that you don't mess it up and make it worse. Definitely you need some good quality crowning files if you want to do that kind of stuff. The ones I like are the diamond encrusted ones that you can get, and I actually found a supplier of one of these that make the equivalent of the stuff that Stu Mac makes, but at a much lower price, and I found them on eBay. I'll see if I can dig up the link to them and maybe share it with you guys if you're interested. But it really makes the work a lot better, because I find when you use a metal file that has teeth in it, it leaves a lot more chatter marks, whereas the diamond encrusted tools don't do that as much. And the trick that I've learned with fret polishing is to use as many grades of sandpaper as you can. And I normally start off at about 600 grit, and I work my way up to the highest grid I can find, like up to 2000 or something like that. So you can go like, 600, 800, 1000, 1500, and so on and so forth till you get to about 2000. And then I continue the buffing with, just regular cloth and some buffing compounds. And after that, I actually go one step beyond that. I actually take a Dremel with a buffing wheel, and I use a special buffing compound that is made for jewelry by jewelers. It's actually a block that looks like a block of wax. It's red, but it's actually a buffing compound. You put this on the wheel and you just go over it with the Dremel tool, and it sparkles. Feels like glass under your fingers. So that really works out really well. And once you know how to do that stuff, you just get better and better at it, It's really, really cool to be able to do your own stuff. So good for you, man. Excellent, Jack. I'm sure once you start doing these kind of things, guys, you're not gonna have to go to a guitar tech to do it, because you're gonna be able to do a better job yourself. So just a little bit of patience and some, trial and error will go a long way. Ed B says, I replaced the saddle block for an A string and tightened it really well, and it still slips. It's not the nut since it's a locking tremolo system. And he also goes on to say the Floyd Rose is not an original. Maybe it's just cheaply made and inferior and therefore hard to fix. I'm not sure if there's more I can do about it besides replacing the saddle blocks and making sure it's tight. Okay, so let's address this question. In my experience, when I've been dealing with saddle tuning issues on a Floyd specifically, the saddle blocks sometimes are not the issue. It's a good thing that you look there first just to make sure, because sometimes when you over tighten a saddle block and they're cheaply made, they actually get a little indentation made on the actual metal, and that could slip sometimes. But in my experience, a lot of times the issue with slippage is on the other side. I know you mentioned that it's a locking system, so that's good, but the same scenario could happen on the other side. The metal actually can get little divots in it, and it could actually cause the string to slip. Upgrading those little blocks where the screws go and lock down your strings would be the next thing I would try. But go with good quality hardware. Don't skimp on the hardware, because a lot of the cheaper stuff is made with pot metals that are not as hard. You want to get the good stuff. So if you can try and find a source, maybe even get an original Floyd Rose, the German ones, hardware. Try and get that. Try that, and make sure it's actually cranked down pretty well, and you should not have issues at that point. That's the next thing I would try and see if that works for you. And no, 9:30 a.m. is not too early for a beer, in my opinion, Ed. Go ahead, man. Enjoy yourself. If it's hot and humid where you're at, a beer would definitely do the job. We're getting rain today. We're supposed to be getting thunder showers here, so I'm not in the mood for beer. I'm just going to drink my water. Cheers, guys. A lot of people invest in StewMac tools when they're doing work on their guitars, because they feel that it's easy. They have everything. They do charge a pretty steep premium, however. So if you don't necessarily need StewMac stuff, make it yourself. Go to your hardware store. You can get a lot of stuff that's basically the equivalent or very similar with just little modifications. You can actually get stuff yourself, and that'll save you a lot of money. There are some tools, however, that I think are great that they offer. One thing in particular, I don't know if you've seen this, but they have the Fret Rocker tool. For those who don't know what this is, it's a little triangular piece of metal that you rock across 3 frets when you're making sure everything is level before you do, let's say, a setup where you want to do a fret filing or whatever. They have a version of this, and on each edge they have a little section that has diamond encrusted, well, diamonds basically, to that works like a file, so that you can actually level frets independently instead of having to do a complete fret level. You can only, it'll allow you to level down a fret individually and make sure that it's perfectly level with the two other frets on the right and left side of it. And that's really, really a smart idea. The only problem is they're selling this tool for over $100, so it's a little steep. I mean, honestly, a tool like that shouldn't cost more than $40. You know what I mean? But StewMac seems to, come out with very ingenious tools, and they charge a heck of a lot for it. I understand that's how they make their money. But, that's one tool that I'd love to have. Unfortunately, I'm not going to go out and buy it because it's just too expensive. And I can often just do a fret leveling of one fret on my own by eye, just taking my time, filing the fret down individually, and then using my regular fret rocker that I bought for like a couple of bucks off eBay, which didn't come from StewMac, by the way, because they still charge a lot of money for theirs. And I'm frugal, so I end up looking for deals, and I ended up getting that one. As long as you take your time, that's the key. It really is. Just don't go too fast. What else? What other questions do we have here? Ed also says that he's fighting his gas and he wants to buy the Overloud THU full version, but it's pricey, and really trying to cap my spending during these tough financial times. I agree with you, man. Totally agree. Have you tried the demo? I know they offer a demo. What is it? 15 days, 10 days. Some of them even offer a month or so. So that can kind of keep you going while you're trying to control your gas, or maybe make it worse actually. So, but the Overloud stuff really does. It sounds pretty good, man. And if you can eventually get that, you can do a lot with that if you're doing any kind of recordings as well. And especially if you have good quality speakers. I've tried it. It sounds really good. Jack says that if he had StewMac tools, it probably wouldn't take him as long. Yeah, good tools make a big difference. What I've learned is good tools make a big difference. A clean workspace makes a big, big difference as well. So that you don't have to always look for your stuff. And, it really is a question of keeping the workspace clean. I'm not good at doing that. I got stuff all over the place, but it really does save you time. If I was doing this professionally, I would make sure that my workspace would be immaculate. What other questions here? Ed says, I'm getting horrible sharp frets in the dry winter times. Yeah, that's common, Ed. We call that fret sprout. That's probably because your space, wherever you're keeping your guitar, is not in a controlled, conditioned environment. What I mean by that is it's probably too dry. You might want to introduce a small humidifier in the space where you keep your guitars and keep the humidity at about 40% or so in the winter. That will help. It'll help the moisture from the wood won't dry out as much, and the frets won't, the wood won't shrink as much, so the frets won't stick out. Frets are metal, they don't move. It's the wood that really contracts and expands with the humidity and moisture. So if you limit that, you'll have less issues like that. Fixing the sharp frets, very, very simple thing to do. Just take a little bit of sandpaper and just go over the frets a couple of times, and you'll be able to round them off and knock them down so it doesn't feel like you're playing with razor blades. The tricky part is just don't go too far. You don't want to damage the edge of your neck. You want to make sure that you're not taking out any of the finish on the neck as well. So that'll help out. And what else do we have in terms of questions here? Jack says he's yeah, some Seymour Duncans that he ordered a while back. Hot rods, 250 for them. So I guess, Jack, you're looking for something a little bit more punchy for your pickups. The Jackson guitars are really nice. Ed picked up a Jackson King V last year. Says he had some sharp frets on them, fixed them, and he loves that guitar right now. I find that the Jackson guitars, at least the ones I have, are really, really a great deal. They're really affordable, and for just I think I paid it $200. Uh, it's a nice guitar to have. It really is. And always having the opportunity to experiment with pickups and whatnot is always a good thing. You're asking the guy that's addicted to gear here and can't keep a set of pickups in his guitar for more than a month. So I'm really open to experimenting with good pickups and just trying different things. I just feel that it's nice to have a variety of tones in your guitars, and if you have a lot of them, why should they all sound the same? You should be able to have tools at your disposal for different types of sounds, and oftentimes just swapping pickups can make a huge difference in the sound of the guitar. Jack says he keeps on going back to his Les Paul style guitar. Um, I understand that too. There's always some guitars that you gravitate to more than others. I don't know why, but it's true. I find that too. Often when I'm playing in live situations, for example, I'll um, I'll find myself going back to my Telecaster often. But I like my Les Pauls as well. Like I was playing the last gig we did with my black Tokai Les Paul style guitar. That thing rocked. It sounded so good and it played so good. I was getting a great sound out of that guitar. So you know, it's nice to be able to switch gears sometimes. You get into a strat mode, then you switch over to something else. To be honest with you, the guitars that I've been playing the least right now are my strats for some reason. I don't know why. I think I'm looking for more of a fatter sound that I can get from the humbuckers or even my Telecasters. So I haven't played my strats in a while. I think they're not feeling as loved these days. I'm gonna have to break them out. But when I do break them out and I start playing with them again, I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah, Strat. You need a Strat. This is a great guitar, and so it's always nice to have a few selections in your tool shed, as they say. So, any other questions regarding guitars and guitar issues? There's always questions regarding Harley Benton that pop up. I know Ed is having a conversation here and answering some questions regarding getting guitars shipped over from Germany and whatever. Um, Shipping is hit and miss. It all depends how lucky you get. I've seen some guys like some UPS guys and FedEx guys, like FedEx not so much, but sometimes UPS, they're not exactly careful with the packages. You get the boxes and they're all like kicked around. You can tell that they've been drop kicked a few times. It's always scary and nerve wracking when you see that the issues that you come across. But hopefully they pack them well. It would be a good idea to maybe get a guitar ordered with a case, and hopefully they put it in the case so that you have an extra level of protection. But they don't always do that. So, and of course, right now there's a lot of delays in terms of the shipping, right? How long it actually takes. Last time I checked with Harley Benton, I think they were still having some pretty serious delays in terms of their merchandise. So you're probably not gonna get stuff relatively soon. So if you're expecting to get it in a week or two, it's probably going to be closer to a month and a half, maybe more. So you got to be careful with that stuff if you're looking at trying to get things quickly. People that are viewers here, they're from the States that order from Sweetwater. That's another option. They probably will be able to ship quicker since they're within the United States. I don't order anything from Sweetwater because for me the duties and everything, it just becomes not much of a good deal for me. So I'll tend to buy local. I haven't actually bought new gear lately. I've been working on my guitar. I'll show you the 335. I'll give you an update on that for those of you that have been following the progress on that and have been asking to see where it's at. I actually I've got it here. We'll talk about it in a couple of minutes. But in terms of gear, beyond the amp that I bought recently, the Blackstar there, I haven't really purchased anything. Actually, if anything, I'm trying to liquidate some of the stuff that I have because I had too much gear lying around. I recently got rid of like, I don't know, 20 different pedals that I had that were okay, but they weren't like my favorites. They weren't like pedals that I would play on a regular basis. So I decided to liquidate those, make room for some other stuff. But I haven't actually got an itch for anything extraordinary. The new stuff that I've been keeping my eyes on that have been coming out lately from companies, so-so. I haven't really got a big hard on for anything yet that I've seen. So I'm just keeping my eyes open until I can see some good stuff coming out. By the way, I just wanted to let you know if I know that we had discussed this a while back, but Harley Benton is also, because we're talking about Harley Benton just now, they're coming out with a new guitar, which is a new model, a headless guitar. Not my thing. Not really the Steinberger style. More, it's like kind of a Strat body, but with a headless design. Um, they're coming out with these, and the cool thing is that they're cheap. They're only about, I think, 460 bucks with a soft case. So if any of you are into that kind of thing, you can check them out. Humbucker, double humbucker design, stainless steel frets, maple and ebony fretboard is going to be offered on those. And you know, if that's your thing, that's maybe a cool option for somebody looking for a headless guitar. I always found it odd, kind of, it felt weird to me to play a headless guitar. I actually had a friend who had an original Steinberger back in the day, and it takes a little bit of time. It's weird because you feel like there's something missing on the neck end. So, but once you get used to it, it's pretty cool. What I liked about it, it was like smaller, compact. The body on the one I tried was just like a rectangular shape. They would make cool travel guitars, I think, you know, just because you can put them in a bag or something like that a little bit easier. So that's pretty cool if you're looking for that kind of thing. Hey, good morning, Bruce. Thank you for joining us all the way from Long Island. Long Island, New York. How are things in New York, man? I don't want to talk about COVID, but I mean, the numbers are staggering. Stuff that I've been seeing in the States, wow. Pretty scary. Gospel of Mark says he bought a used Silver Sky. Wow, nice. Congratulations. I played it and couldn't let it get away. Best Strat I've owned. A lot of people are saying that. I haven't had the opportunity to try one of those. And, you know, at first I was kind of joking around saying, like, seriously? Like, why don't you just get a Strat? I know that PRS makes great guitars. I know that they put a lot of attention in their guitars. So why not, you know, give one a shot? Unfortunately, I haven't seen any locally yet. I'm scared to try one, actually, to be honest with you, because if it's going to be that good, I might have to spend a lot of money to get one. I'm surprised you found a used one, however, because I don't, you know, it's a relatively new model. So it's good that you grabbed one used, saved yourself some money there. You know, my question is this: when is PRS going to come out with a Telecaster version of the Silver Sky? for people who like Telecasters. I'm sure they will eventually. I mean, they should. That would be cool to see. Curious what kind of improvements they would make there. Anyone have a guitar that they think about selling constantly, but then you play it again and keep it every time? Yeah, almost every guitar that I own, I get that feeling. It's just one of those things. Honestly, Strat 5150, it happens to me on a regular basis. It's just one of those things. Whenever you're thinking about selling a guitar, sleep on it. That's my advice to you guys. Don't make a hasty decision, because honestly, you're going to regret it. Just keep it for a couple of days. The perspective that you have on your guitars will change on a daily basis. At least for me, it does. And it's weird because one day I'll play a guitar and I'm like, doesn't really do it for me. And then a couple of days later, I'll take the same guitar out and I'll play it, and I'm like, man, this is a great guitar. Like, it really is a great guitar. So nothing's changed on the guitar. It's really just your perspective. So, just hang on to it for a bit. Just be patient. Sleep on it. Never make a hasty decision. Fat Philosopher says, a Silver Sky. I'm not touching that subject with a 10-foot pole. It's one of those things. It's either you love them or you hate them, right? It's a very polarizing type of instrument, I think. So, the jokes are like, the memes that I've seen where you see a PRS style body with a Fender headstock, and people jokingly say this is the new Fender that they're coming out with. Again, I don't know how they get away with it, but I mean, it seems like it's a blatant copy of a Fender, down to the number of knobs and down to the shape. Yes, it's not exactly the same, but there's no denying that the DNA is a Fender, right? So it's kind of Paul Reed Smith way of sticking it to Fender, I think. We're just lucky that Fender is not going after people like Gibson is doing. Otherwise, they'd be in trouble. Speaking of Gibson, I don't know if you've heard, but apparently they're after another guitar now, another guitar manufacturer. Satellite Amplifiers have released a guitar. It's not a new release. They've been making these guitars since 2016. And it basically looks a lot like the Epiphone Coronet. I don't know if you've seen these. Gibson was making these back in the 1950s. Since then, they haven't really done anything with it. They haven't released it. They haven't tried to make any money with it. It was kind of dead. It was kind of a dead line, a dead model. Anyways, so this company, Satellite Amplifiers, released a guitar that looks a lot like them, and all of a sudden Gibson is all over the company right now, and they're just trying to get rid of this model. Again, they're trying to sue them, they're trying to bully them, and it's weird because they haven't shown any interest in this guitar model or anything since 1999, 20 years ago, and all of a sudden they're up at arms trying to get a piece of the pie, I guess. The funny thing is that the company that released this model actually wanted to buy the rights to use it. They actually offered Gibson some money to be able to release the model, since they weren't doing anything with it, but Gibson hasn't really responded yet. They're probably gonna refuse and probably just ask for royalties so that they don't have to actually do anything with it and still be able to make money with it. It's just one of those things. It's kind of weird, but just goes to say, like, a lot of other companies are not doing that kind of stuff, thankfully. Otherwise, there'd be a lot of lawsuits floating around. Do you think Harley Benton would be able to get away with, all the stuff that they're coming out with? I mean, they have a lot of junior style guitars that look a lot like the Gibson Juniors, the Gibson Les Pauls and whatnot. I think the only thing protecting Harley Benton is the fact that they don't actually make the guitars, they buy them from other suppliers. So Gibson technically would have to go after the suppliers, which in most part are overseas, and it's a lot harder to sue companies that are overseas than it is to sue people right here, in Canada or America. So that's probably why they get away with it. And then if they do sue one of the suppliers, all they need to do is go and do business with another supplier, and so on and so forth. So, Gibson would end up spending a lot of money in legal fees trying to fight all of these things. So I guess they kind of put blinders on to certain companies, but others they don't. What else are we talking about? Strat 5150, the Facebook Hotone Ampero Owners Group has a file share with patches. Yes, it does. I've actually uploaded some patches there as well over the last little while. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. Even the ones that I've uploaded, the ones I initially uploaded were not done with the FR speaker that I bought. They were done before I bought that speaker, so they're not the best. If I would upload the newer ones, they'd be quite different. But you could still try to download some of the patches and work with them. Cool Tunes made easy. Like your shirt, Tony, but I'm still waiting for my Addicted to Gear t-shirt. Did you read my comment? I actually inquired. So just to put the record straight, guys, I don't ship out the t-shirts. Okay, I work with a company that does. When you place an order, the order actually doesn't come to me. It goes right to the company. They print the t-shirts. They ship out the t-shirts. I just get a small percentage of the entire price that you pay for just providing the link. So they take care of the shipping. I've inquired with them, and they said that it depends where you're located. I think they said it's like a week and a half, a week to a week and a half if you're in the States, a little longer if you're outside of the States. But actually right now, if they're dealing with any kind of customs or anything like that, it definitely takes longer. If you haven't received your t-shirt in about a week or so, let me know. We can always look into it again and see if there was some kind of a mix-up, maybe a mix-up in the address or whatnot. But you should still be able to contact the company with the link that was sent to you when you placed your order. If you have any issues, they also have a live chat, so you can actually go on the website and inquire about your order, and they should be able to tell you where it is. So I'm sorry you're having problems with that. Unfortunately, it's not from my end. I can assist you, in getting to resolve the issue, but unfortunately, you have to be a little bit patient. So appreciate your patience. What else here? Fat Philosopher says it sucks that manufacturers don't include covers with amps. They should, and then they used to. Some, in the old days when you used to buy a pretty expensive amplifier, they used to. The thing is, right now, that is basically easy money for the shops. And a lot of shops actually make more money on the accessories. So if you sell an amp or a guitar, you're making a certain percentage, not a huge percentage, but you tend to make more money on accessories, on, guitar cables and picks and shirts and covers, amp covers and cases. That, the case in point, no pun intended, but that's why a lot of guitars that are being sold today don't even come with a case, because it's another opportunity for the retailers to make some money that they wouldn't be able to make directly only on the guitar. And they have to stay in business. They got to pay the bills, and that's how they do it. So I know it often feels like we're being nickel and dimed, but honestly, sometimes I think Mesa still provides covers with their amps. At least I got one for one of mine. But I don't know if they do that all the time, so I'm not really sure. Wayne says, good morning, all. Stupid gas won this week. Had to buy two. Two? Wow. What did you end up getting, Wayne? Let us know what you bought. Curious. Fat Philosopher says the electronics on my acoustic fell out, and Ibanez says they don't make any more parts for it. That sucks. How did that happen? What happened? Like, did the screws come loose? I mean, usually it's kind of difficult for the electronics to fall out. You must have been playing too aggressively there, Fat Philosopher. Were you playing some Who songs? Were you doing the windmill with your guitar? So Bruce says, severe case of gas this week because of 200 character limit. I will divide into 4 comments, so pay attention. First, after watching videos of David Lindley, went online and bought a lap steel. That's pretty cool. I never played a lap steel. That's the one that you're playing sitting down, right? And then second, last week mentioned maybe selling an Ibanez 335, lowered action a bit and switch from 9s and love it again. It's not going anywhere now. You see what I mean? When you're considering selling something, sleep on it, change the pickups, change the strings, try it again in a couple of days, and often you'll, like, now he loves it. That's great. So that saved you some money. And then when I thought I was selling the Ibanez, I bought another semi-hollow, bought a 2019 PRS SE Custom 22 hollow body, arriving Wednesday, $575. That's a nice price, man. Where did you get a deal like that? Oh, that's pretty cool. Was that, I mean, is that a used guitar or what? And then fourth, bought a Wormouth carved top HH soloist body for my spare USA Strat neck. We'll add Wilkinson, Trem, and Duncan P-Rail pickups from my spare parts. Man, you're going to be a busy guy, Bruce. You know what? I've been looking for projects during this time just to keep my mind and hands busy. And you know, it's just one of those things. I think it's great to be able to actually keep yourself occupied. And what better way than to work on guitars? When I was a kid, I used to love to make models. Do you remember those model airplane kits or car kits or tank kits and whatever? I used to love those things. And I used to, you know, build those things in a day. And now I've actually replaced that urge with building guitars. It's great. Which amp are you going to ditch now that you have the Blackstar that you love? There's 2 on the chopping block. I mentioned it last time. I don't know if you caught it, but definitely think I'm going to ditch the Bassbreaker 15 head. And I might ditch, I'm not really sure, but I might ditch the Fender Supersonic 22. I don't really want to ditch the Fender Supersonic because it really has a great clean sound. It has that Fender clean. But as I mentioned, I'm more of a Marshall guy. And you know, the Friedman scratches that itch. My Brunetti Pleximan scratches that itch. And now the Blackstar scratches that itch. So I'd like to maybe eventually get a Vox. Maybe an AC30 or something like that. I don't really feel like I need a Vox, but I've never had one. And it does have a definite, a different profile in terms of sound. So we'll see. I don't know yet, but I'm not in a rush to sell these things. If any of you are interested, let me know, but I'm not in a big rush. So I might change my mind. Stranger things have happened. So Quicksilver says, when changing strings, is it necessary to always reset the intonation and general setup? I do have the tendency to leave strings on longer than necessary, am I damaging the guitar? You're not damaging the guitar, but definitely what I say is if you're changing string gauges, then you will have to do a setup, because a lighter string gauge or a thicker string gauge will give different relief in the neck, and that'll change how much space you have underneath your string, between your string and your fretboard. So if you're going to a heavier string gauge, you're going to have more bend in your neck because the strings put more tension. So your action might be a little bit higher than you previously had it. The other thing is that you will definitely see in your intonation change if you change the gauge of strings, because the saddles now are going to be either too forward or too far back for the string radius. So you have to change that. So the best thing to do is, if you're changing a gauge up or down, you will have to do a setup. Sometimes you will even have to work on the nut. So if you're going up a string gauge, for example, the slots might actually be too thin for your strings, which will cause binding, and then you'll have issues with tuning. So the answer is yes, you might have to do a setup if you're going up or down a string gauge. If you're staying with the same string gauge that you normally use, you should not have to do that. It might always be a good idea to check your intonation just to make sure nothing is shifted when you were changing your strings. But beyond that, you're not really doing any damage to your guitar. So it's all good. Hey, Randy, how's it going, my friend? Southern Illinois. Strat 5150 was looking at a Warmoth Soloist build last night. The Warmoth stuff is great. I've often had the urge to buy a Soloist body or guitar. But, you know, they're pretty expensive, so I really don't know. I really don't know. Eventually I might, but yeah, there's so many things that you can do when it comes to guitars. You can buy local. My way of saving money is just to go out and buy a kit from a local seller that has the majority of the features that I like, and then work with it from there. It's probably the best way of doing it in terms of saving money. Tony, you should enter that Crimson Guitar contest for YouTubers. I don't even know what you're talking about. What is that? I got to check that out. Quicksilver says, also, is there anything to treat maple other than a damp cloth? Okay, well, the answer to that question is it depends. Is the fretboard treated with polyurethane or some other kind of finish, or is it unfinished? Because some companies like Music Man don't put a finish on their neck. They just put a wax and oil, and that's how they treat their necks. And those are actually great necks. So if it's untreated, then you would technically just need to hydrate it with some type of oil. You can also protect it with a wax. If it's treated with poly, the poly basically creates a barrier. It's like plastic. It's like, you know, when your parents had the old sofas in your living room covered in plastic. That's kind of what that's the equivalent of what that is for your guitar neck. So there's really nothing to do beyond just keeping it clean with, you know, a damp cloth will do the trick. So it all depends. If you know how your guitar neck is finished, you can do either or. Victor, I don't like the neck pickup of my G&L Blues Boy. Humbucker, he has a humbucker neck and single Tully bridge. Sounds too dark and muddy. Can you recommend a Raymond Noodle budget neck pickup? Yeah. So you want to stay with the humbucker in the neck? The thing with humbucker pickup in the neck and a single coil in the bridge, whenever I try a guitar where there's a humbucker and single coils mixed together, the variation of tones is always a little bit too much in my opinion. You know, the humbucker always seems beefy, a little bit darker, more bassy. And then you go to the single coil and it seems like it's too thin. And the variation of the tones is what bothers me. I'm sure like the neck pickup would probably be great in a guitar with two humbuckers, but because you're mixing it with a single coil, it might be too much of variation, and you'll tend to hear more of the darkness and the muddiness, right? For me, I mean, neck pickups that I love a lot. Um, One that I would recommend would be the Monty's Guitars PAF neck pickup. For me, that's my favorite neck pickup of all time. Or you might consider maybe not putting a humbucker in the neck. If you already have a single coil in the bridge, maybe just put a single coil in the neck position or something like that as well. My opinion. And also, yeah, also that's one of the other things is that when you have a single coil and a humbucker mixed together, your pots, if you're using 250K pots, that's good for a single coil, not so good for the humbucker, because humbuckers are usually 500K. What you can also try is going somewhere in between the 500 and 250, like 350, 375, and see how that works. That might be able to take a little bit off of each to give it a little bit less variation, if you know what I mean. Hey, Paul, long rehearsal last night. Slept in. I know how that feels. How are your ears? Are they still ringing from the rehearsal? Strat 5150 says, I was shocked at how good the Slick Age pickups from Guitar Fetish were, but I haven't tried any of the humbuckers. I've tried some of those of the Guitar Fetish pickups. They're not bad. The ones I got were pretty good. I wouldn't say they're the best that I've tried or the best that I have in my guitars, but some of them are pretty decent. So while we're talking about guitars, I wanted to give you guys a little preview here. I don't know if you saw this. A lot of you have asked me how the guitar is coming along. Well, this is the guitar. This is, I don't know if you remember this guitar, guys. This is the kit that I bought. And here it is, slowly coming together. As you can see, finally got the lacquer the way I want it. I'll show you the back. There's some dust stuff on it, but trying to keep stuff off this guitar. But so here's the back of it. I didn't use any tools in terms of buffing to be able to buff this thing. I had to do everything by hand. I don't have any special tools for that. But so just to give you an overview for guys that haven't been up to speed on what this is, I bought this kit from an online seller that sells unfinished kits. I colored it off with some dyes from a leather dye, liquid leather dye, to get the tonality of the guitar there, the nice red. I wanted this build to be kind of a vintage style build. And basically, I was trying to build this at a budget price. I didn't want to spend too much money. So I basically, here's a shot of the headstock. Here's a shot of the back of the headstock. I don't know if you can see it. So there's no logo on it. I haven't gotten the truss rod on it yet. I did, however, change a couple of things, and I'll go over that with you guys. What took a long time is really getting the finish the way I wanted it to be. Um, as you can see, I mean, it's not a perfect finish. There's still some light scratches, but I wanted to stop there because I wanted it to be more of a vintage type of thing. The binding on this was white, so as you can see, I kind of gave it a more of a vintage color. I actually sprayed that so that it would give a more of a vintage look to it. I like the way the grain came out. There's a little bit of flame there. I used different leather dyes to make that pop a little bit more. I went with black first and then red, and that helped a lot. Um, there's no binding on the side of the neck, as you can see. The neck has a really nice feel to it. The front of the neck is pretty dark, just dots, no crazy inlays. I already did a fret leveling, fret polishing on the frets, so that's looking good. The hardware on the guitar was all gold, and that's not my favorite type of thing. Um, it's always a little bit easier to get the finish off the gold. These pickups are not the pickups that came with the kit. I pulled out the pickups that were originally in my Tokai, the Black Beauty that I upgraded with Iron Gear pickups. And I actually did an A/B test with these pickups and the Iron Gear. A lot of you actually preferred these pickups. So I decided to take these pickups and put them into this guitar because they were still pretty good, nice sounding, and I had them already. So I put them in here. These are what's going to stay in here. As far as the rest of the hardware, I didn't go with the stock tuners. They came with gold tuners, but I decided to use these Kluson style deluxe tuners because I wanted to have plastic up here, just because it wears, the tuners wear off the quickest, and I really don't like when the tuners get all like ugly and the gold flakes off. So I decided to change that. The hardware, the knobs, as you can see, I don't have the hardware in here yet. The knobs that they gave me are gold style knobs for Gibson Les Paul style knobs. I don't like those, so I purchased the gold top knobs, which are going to be kind of like this. I don't know if you can see that, but the classic gold and black. The rings on the pickups were cream and they looked really cheap, so I ordered a set of black, and I think the black and the gold look a lot more classy, and it actually goes well with the knobs, right? The knobs match as well, so it's going to look pretty nice with the black knobs. And the rest of the hardware, like the bridge and the saddle, these came with the kit, so they're not the best, honestly. I mean, it's a kit guitar, right? So it's not gonna be high quality. I might eventually change them out if I feel that the guitar has potential and it sounds good, and I'm playing it a lot. I might actually change that eventually. But you can kind of see what it's gonna look like here. I'll even put this one in. I don't want it to fall off and scratch the guitar because it's lacquer and it scratches just by looking at it. I'm telling you, you have to be like super careful. But you're starting to see what the guitar looks like, and eventually I think it's gonna look pretty good. Now the only thing is I haven't decided whether or not I want to put in a pick guard on this or not. The pick guard, the black pick guard. I kind of like it without the pick guard. What do you guys think? I need some advice. So pick guard or not. And then on the headstock, the little cover that they sent me with for the truss rod it looks like an Ibanez one. It's really angular and sharp. It doesn't really look good for this guitar. Excuse me. So I'm probably going to buy one of those Bell Gibson style knob, truss rod covers. Put one of those to make it look a little bit more classy, you know. But the rest of the hardware, you know, the strap locks and stuff are all stock from the kit. I'm probably not going to put in the stock, the stock tone and volume knobs. They're not that great, so I'm probably going to buy a better set, maybe CTS or something like that, and put those in. And because I don't want them to fail on me. And there's nothing worse than trying to put together a 335. The electronics in a 335 is a real pain in the ass. So if you're trying to put that together and you want to make sure you don't have to go in there after the fact, do yourself a favor, just spend an extra couple of bucks and buy yourself some good quality knobs. I have orange drop capacitors that I already purchased. So I'm going to put it together. We'll see how it sounds, and then I'll decide from there whether or not I want to, you know, spend more money on the kit or not. But I figured it would be a good exercise. The kit took a long time to put together. One of the things that I did, I messed up. And guys, this is my advice to you if you're ever working on a guitar, especially a lacquer guitar. First of all, if I had a choice and I was not like looking to get something that would age quicker, I wouldn't go with lacquer. I would go with polyurethane. Polyurethane makes a much better finish. It's thicker, it doesn't change color, and it's a lot harder to scratch. Lacquer is easy to scratch. It stays thin because one layer of lacquer melts into the other, and you really have to build it up a lot before you actually have some type of protection on your guitar. And honestly, the guitar will never really be protected 100%. The only thing is that it does age nicer. Like, it doesn't chip. Lacquer won't chip. It'll kind of wear away. And that's what I kind of wanted to go after, is just getting it to look kind of like vintage. So there's that. I had to spray probably about 4 cans of lacquer on this thing. And if you guys have ever sprayed lacquer and you don't have a booth, it stinks to high heaven. You have to wear a respirator, and that generally is not an easy thing to do to keep clean, especially if there's dust in the air. So there's that. What I did is I messed up. After I had the lacquer where I wanted it, I had to make a little touch up. I'm very anal about the work that I do on guitars. So I put some masking tape along the front of the fretboard here. I put masking tape to protect it from the spray. And so I had put masking tape on the edges as well, because there is some rosewood on the side, right? I didn't want to paint the rosewood. So I was like maybe a millimeter off on the masking tape. So when I pulled it off, there was a little line that didn't get color on it, and it bothered me. So basically I touched it up, I resprayed it, and I resanded it so it blends in and you can't see it anymore. It looks well finished. But to protect the body that had already been sprayed and buffed, I wrapped it in saran wrap so I wouldn't get overspray on the body. What ended up happening, like an idiot, I forgot that lacquer will react with certain types of plastics, especially if they have oils in them. And so when I took out the saran wrap, I had kind of like tiger stripes all over the body that didn't buff out very easily. So I had to respray the stupid thing. Respray it and rebuff it, and it just took forever. So a word to the wise: if you're working on a guitar, try not to work in lacquer. And if you are working in lacquer, just make sure that you're super careful with the finish. But basically, I'm happy with the way it turned out for a guitar kit. Pretty happy. One other surprise that I got, and I didn't mention in my review when I did the review on the guitar kit. I didn't try it, but I'm going to tell you now. The pickup cavities were too small. by maybe a millimeter. The pickups didn't fit in. So what I had to do was I had to take my Dremel out and just shave off a little bit around the pickup cavity to make the pickups fit in. I thought at one point I thought because the pickups that I originally put in were made in Japan, that maybe they were a different size, but it turned out it wasn't the pickup, it was the actual cavity. So next time I'll check that first before I actually do any of the finishing, so I don't have to risk damaging the finishing by using the Dremel to make the cavities bigger. But these are the type of surprises that you will often get with a kit guitar. So I'm looking forward to finishing that up. Hopefully it will be soon, and I'll actually play it for you guys, maybe do a review on the guitar when it's finished. I think that would be fun. Gunter wants to know how much time I've put into the guitar. Oh, that's a great question. Difficult question, actually. I'm going to say, look, there's the initial sanding. When you get the kit, you can't just paint it. You have to sand it. So you raise the grain, you wet a cloth, and you just make the grain pop. Then buff it down with sandpaper once or twice. So there's that. Then you want to give it a good sanding so everything's even. There's no glue that's left over on the kit, because if you try and stain over glue, it's not going to work. So you have to make sure all the glue is removed. After that, then what did I do? I actually, I applied a sanding sealer so that when you no, sorry, mistake. I tinted the body first in black, sanded it down so that the black would just stay in the grain and would make the flame pop. I did that once or twice. Then after that, I applied the red stain over that, got it to where I wanted that to be. Then I applied the sanding sealer on top of that, so that I wouldn't have to apply too many coats of lacquer, because the lacquer will just get absorbed into the wood like a sponge. And then what happens is that no matter how many layers of lacquer you put in, you're always going to get little divots, because the lacquer will actually go into the grain. And you don't want that. If you want a relatively flat finish, you need to apply sanding sealer. So you apply the sanding sealer, you want to level that out, then you start applying. Then what I did is actually, sorry, before I put the sanding sealer, I glued the neck into the neck joint, let that stay about a day, 24 hours, and then applied the sanding sealer everywhere. And then after that, sanded down the sanding sealer, and then started the coats of lacquer. And the coats of lacquer, the way that works is that, you spray a coat, you let it dry, spray a coat, let it dry, and so on and so forth. I did that probably, I don't know, over 20 times, probably more. You start off with very light coats, and then you go thicker and thicker. And I probably used about 4 cans of lacquer total with this build. And so then at a certain point, you want to start sanding and seeing if there's any kind of like residue, bumps, or anything that's weird in the finish. You want to get that relatively level and then continue applying the sanding, the lacquer. And then also what I did is I also took some dye, spray dye for the edges here. And what you need to do is when you apply the dye, it goes everywhere. It goes onto the edges as well. So everything's kind of red. So at that point, I had to take a razor blade and basically just peel off the finish on the edge of the trim here, which is painstaking, and you can mess that up. I had to do some touch-ups here and there. And then when that was off, this was like completely white, which didn't look very, very good. So I sprayed it with a tinted lacquer and then continued the clear coats on top of that. And then had to spend a whole bunch of time wet sanding, starting from 600 grit all the way up to like the highest grit I can get. And then you have to buff with a buffing compound and a lot of elbow grease. So, needless to say, the project takes a long time. A long time. So, if you're looking for something that you want to do quick in a weekend, forget it. You definitely need a lot of time. Um, so, if you're used to doing this kind of thing and you have a spray booth and you have equipment, if you're using a spray gun instead of spray cans, for example, you don't have to do 20 coats. You can do, 2 coats because it goes on a lot thicker, right? But you need special equipment. I don't have that kind of stuff. So I do it the old fashioned way, and it takes a long time. So honestly, if it's the first time you're doing this, I would say just buy a body that's already finished. Go with a Strat style build. It's easier to put together. It doesn't take as much work. You can basically put it together in a weekend, and it's basically an assembly type project. But if you're dealing with paint and finish, it's a nightmare because if everything goes well, you're okay, not too bad. If you start getting issues with reaction with different types of paints. There's a lot of sanding involved and a lot of time involved. So, anyways, it's a long project. All right, just suffice it to say, you have to have a lot of patience. That's why I would never want to become a guitar builder because unless you can mass produce these things, it just takes forever. Like I understand why custom builders charge so much. They have to because there's so many hours that go into it. And then the fret leveling and the polishing and putting in the hardware, putting in the electronics. Yeah, it's not an easy thing, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun, guys. um, Strat 5150 said, any experience with hand rub lacquer? um, Not really. I don't think you'd want a hand rub lacquer. You might be able to hand rub other stuff like um, some kind of even polyurethane you could probably hand rub, but lacquer, I don't know. I think it would just be a mess. I prefer to spray it on like a varnish, but I don't know. I like the leather dyes because you can get some really nice finishes with the leather dyes. And you could also do combination colors as well. At one point, I was thinking of doing a different color. But I mean, if anything goes wrong with the finish, your other alternative is just to paint it a solid color and live with that. It really is a lot of work, Gunter. I'm telling you, man. But it's a labor of love, and it gives me something to do. So, what do you guys? I'm just going back to the pick guard question here, just to see what you guys think. So you guys think what? No pick guard or pick guard? Uh, oh, that's cool. So Fat Philosopher says Crimson Guitars sent guitar kits out to YouTubers who this summer will build a guitar and then sell it for charity. We vote on the best guitar. Oh, I didn't know that. I would have loved to do that. I wonder if it's too late. I'll look into it. And Fat Philosopher says Brad Angove in Edmonton is the great guitar build off contest trash talking Texas toast. So that's cool. I guess there's going to be some rivalry happening between YouTubers. I should reach out to them and see if I could still be part of it. That would be cool. What kind of a kit is it though? So Fat Philosopher says pickguard. I have here somebody saying no pickguard. I prefer to look at the nice top. Ed says no pickguard. Alan says no pickguard. Kush says no pickguard. Rich says no pickguard. Wow. I guess a lot of you don't like pickguards. I would tend to not want to put a pickguard on it just to save money and not have to drill additional holes into the body. You know, I don't mind if this guitar gets worn up. It's kind of like I want it to get to that point because I think it'll look cooler. Dremel, the gift of the gods for guitar bodies. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you can do with the Dremel, man. I have some equipment that I've never actually even used yet. I have a spray gun, and I bought it specifically to spray guitar bodies, but I don't have a spray booth, so I can't really do that in my garage. I basically paint half of my garage. I'd love to have a spray booth, though. Paul says, use a poly finish. If you think lacquer is such a big deal, tell that to the guy who owns a real Fiesta Red 62 Strat. It makes a difference at most 1 or 2%. I'm not using lacquer because of the tone, Paul. That's not the case. The reason I'm using lacquer is because of the way it wears. I like the way it wears better. If you want to get anything that looks remotely like a relic, you can't do it with poly. That's the only reason. I'm actually selecting lacquer because it's less less of a protective finish than lacquer is, if that makes any sense. Exactly. So Alan said it best. So it says, Alan says, nitro finish is a nightmare to apply and does not wear well. I agree. It is a nightmare to apply because it is toxic. Real nitro, that is, not just lacquer. It's actually not that hard to apply because it actually melts into the previous layer. So if you're working in an area that has dust and there's a likelihood of the finish getting damaged, nitro is actually a good finish to use because it actually will, no matter how many layers you apply, it kind of like reactivates the lower layers and blends in with it. So it's good for that, but it doesn't wear well in the sense that it does, you can actually wear it away. So there's that. So a lot of people say no pick guards. So I think I'm going to stick with no pick guard. Richard says, I have used RIT dye and tongue oil and works. I used tongue oil once on a guitar and I didn't like it because it took a long time to dry. And you still have to apply a lot of coats. Really, poly is the best thing. It just goes on so quick and is a lot easier. We're talking about what's Paul talking about here? Sorry, you guys are having a conversation. I'm just catching up on some of the comments. Yes, I have one. I have 20 Marshall ODs. The one control purple plexifier is equal, and at 160 US new, it's a good deal, and there are a few used ones around. So sorry, I missed part of that conversation. I guess you guys are talking about guitar pedals. And as far as pedals go, guys, I know you guys are talking about pedals. I have a couple that I'm thinking about ordering. The one that I reviewed that was kind of a plexi, the small cheap plexi. I looked and they have another version and they call it the B box, which is, I guess, a clone of a more popular overdrive. And I wanted to order that to see if it was any good. I'm not really sure if it is, but I'm gonna find out for you guys, and then start over again with cheap pedals, you know. Vox Guitars rock. Hi Tony, sorry I'm late. I was mounting my outboard on my kayak. Awesome, man. That's cool. I actually went for a drive yesterday up north and went to a beautiful area with a lot of great biking trails. The trail was 135 kilometers long and some beautiful beaches and cliffs and whatnot along the way. Did some cycling, but it was really, really humid. And I saw a lot of kayakers there, so that would be a perfect place for you to go if you're in Quebec. Fat Philosopher still wants me to put a purple sparkle pig guard on my 335. Speaking of purple, when I was talking to my good friend Matt Gleason from Monty's Guitars, he's a whiz at winding pickups, and his pickups, one of his sets, are in my Les Paul, and it's one of my favorite pickup PAF style pickup set that I have so far. And he mentioned to me while we were doing our recording for you guys, and you'll see that when I post it, that he also wound a set of pickups. If you guys watch the Anderton videos at all, you probably do. There's Danish Pete on that show, and he's a great guitar player. He often sits in and reviews stuff with them and plays the guitars. He's well known for his purple plexi, which is kind of like a custom shop plexi that has a really great sound. And that plexi, at one point, Andertons released a series of Squier guitars that were purple to kind of pay homage to that particular Telecaster. Obviously, it's not the same quality, it's not the same build or anything like that, but a lot of people purchased them. I think there was over 130 or 150 that were sold. And my friend Matt from Monty's Guitars was friends with Danish Pete, and Danish Pete brought his guitar over, that purple plexi, over to him and asked him if he would try taking a crack at building a set of pickups that emulated the pickups in that guitar, which are great sounding pickups, by the way. Now, on the video from Andertons, they claim that the pickups were a set of Twisted Telly pickups, and I forget what the other one was. Oh man, I forget now. But I know one of them was supposed to be a Twisted Telly, and the other one, it slips my mind. We mentioned it in the video, so when I post the video, you'll see. And according to Matt, when he actually took the pickups out of the guitar and measured everything, the specs on the guitar, that's not what they were. So according to Matt, you can't just go buy a Twisted Telly and put it in the guitar and make it sound the same. Not the same pickup at all, according to him. So he actually wound a set of pickups to emulate that set, which you can't really get. And he's selling them on his website. So if you go to Monty's Guitars and check out the Telecaster sets that he has, those are one of the sets that he's selling. And they're not actually that expensive. So if any of you are looking to upgrade your Telecasters and you want to get some great tone, check it out. And obviously check out his humbuckers because the PAFs are great. Watched Masterclass with Eric Harland, special guest John Mayer this morning. Interesting video. There's a lot of great videos, by the way, on Amazon Prime in terms of music. They have a lot more selection than Netflix does. There's some great videos. I watched one on ZZ Top. They have some on the Stones, Slash. They have a really great one on the Police that was actually produced by Andy Summers. I love watching those things. They're great. The Gospel of Mark, did he play a Silver Sky? I think that's also one of the reasons why they came out with the Silver Sky. I think it was really due to John Mayer, and I think John Mayer also probably wanted to give Fender the middle finger for whatever reason. So Randy, you have a B-Box. Great. So, and you say the switch is a little noisy, but overall, how do you like it? Because I think it sounded good in some of the videos. I have a nice Evinrude 4 HP outboard for sale if you know anyone who needs one. I'd love to buy a boat. I like to buy something. I'm where I live. I'm actually a hip and a skip away from water here, and I'd love to have some kind of a boat, even if it's just for fishing. You know, it would be great. I just don't have any place to put it. My Les Paul Tribute has 490R and T pickups. Not sure I'm loving them. Cleaner than expected suggestions, like something a little dirtier. As I mentioned, not that I'm trying to push Monty's stuff, but honestly, if you can get a set of Monty's PAF sounding pickups, they're great. The reason why I like them so much, and I just confirmed this again not long ago, I took out all of my Les Paul style guitars, the original Gibsons, the Tokais, and whatever I have here, and I played them side by side. And I have some great pickups, guys. I mean, over the years, I've tried a lot of pickups. And again, Monty's guitars, PAF style pickups, they're just great. They really are fantastic. The reason I like them is because specifically the neck pickup is fantastic. It has the cut. There's no mud. It's not overly bassy. It's really the way a vintage style PAF pickup should sound. Keep in mind, when the original PAF pickups came out, they were coming, they had the P90s. P90s had a lot of hum. They were based on single coil designs. The reason why they came up with the humbuckers is because they wanted to cut the hum. They weren't necessarily trying to get anything else. They just wanted to have, maybe the equivalent of a P90 but with no hum. And that's why they put the two coils together. So the original P90s were actually more like Telecaster sounding than really beefy. Later on, they experimented with different wines and whatnot. But the original ones, a lot of them were not wax potted. A lot of them, the coils were staggered differently. What they call scatterwound. Today is just a way of saying that they weren't careful when they were winding the pickups in the olden days. A lot of times when they were winding the pickups in the olden days, they were winding them not by a counter counting the rotations, but by time. Like, wind them for 60 seconds or whatever it is. And so sometimes the guy would, have a conversation with the guy next to him, get distracted, and maybe overwind them. Or maybe at one point the wire would break, but it was close enough, so they would stop there. So there was a lot of inconsistencies. But that's kind of what makes the magic with these pickups nowadays, right? That's what we're looking for. But honestly, for me, they're the bee's knees when it comes to pickups. I love them, and I'm probably going to order another neck pickup to put into my other guitar, my other Les Paul here, because I can't get neck pickups that sound like that anywhere else. I've tried so many, and I'm always disappointed with the neck pickups. The double cream PAF humbuckers at Monty's would look great in my Agile Ocean Burst Les Paul. Yeah, I mean, he can wind whatever you want, and also if you're looking for something specific, he can also do custom winds. So just reach out to him, tell him, hey, Tony sent me over, give me a good deal. He's a really cool guy, by the way. Does Monty sell them with the Gibson PCB plug? Well, I don't know if he sells them with the plug, but he sent the ones I ordered with the plug because I asked him to. He might charge you a little bit more. I don't know. I couldn't say, but he did that for me, and it saved me because I had the stupid PCB on my Gibson. That was a real pain. So those, I'm keeping them in the Gibson because they're with the plugs. On my other Gibsons, I decided to go with the Obsidian wire PCB mount, which makes it a lot easier for me to put in. Just slip the wire in and it clips in. Highly recommend those to anyone that has a Gibson. Gospel of Mark, Tony, I still gotta put those Porter pickups, Portertrons in my PRS S2 single cut. Got a new wiring harness for it too. Awesome. Let me know how they sound. I'm really curious. I haven't tried the Portertrons. I've never tried them, so let me know. Bruce says, and he's answering Vox Guitars Rocks. Too bad I'm Long Island, New York. I'd almost give it away, but the trip to Long Island will probably cost me more than the motor is worth. Okay, back to gear. It's okay, man. We could talk about outboard motors too. It's no big deal for me. The other thing I wanted to talk about is basically recording too. You know, like I've been spending a lot of time recording, and I don't have crazy recording gear. Everything I do is kind of on a budget. The recording unit that I use is a Focusrite Scarlett 2-input. It's over here. It's plugged in though. Now I'll show you what it is here. You guys probably have seen one of these before. One of these guys. You know, nothing crazy, just like 2 inputs over here, and you know, USB, regular outputs here, line outs, nothing crazy. And you know, it serves me well. The unit actually works really well. They have a new version of this out now. I mean, if you're doing a recording of a band and specifically trying to record drums, that this would not be enough, because typically for drums you need more than 2 inputs. You know, you want to have at least 8, something around there for drums, 4 to 8. But if you're recording 1 track at a time, or maximum 2 tracks at a time, this works really well. Not too expensive, and a lot of people have asked me, can you actually get decent recordings out of this? And the answer is yes. I mean, really, the power is in your laptop. If you have a good software, if you're using Logic or you're using even GarageBand, you can get some decent recordings out of it. If you have some good mics and you know how to approach miking up either your singer or the drums or your cabinets, you can do a lot with that. And then, of course, with multi-effects today, you can emulate cabinets, you can emulate effects and whatnot. So you have a lot of different ways to record, either digitally or analog, but you can get a lot of great recordings. The trick is just to capture the initial energy of the recording cleanly, and then you can add whatever effects or textures that you want to add later on post-processing. So I've been working on that a lot, and I don't want to buy additional gear just yet because I'm a one-man show here. I don't really need to spend too much money, and it really works well enough for what I need. I've seen a lot of YouTubers that have racks and racks of gear behind them, and it's great to have the ability to get all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I think it just maybe complicates things. A lot of times, when I do a review, for example, I don't need to go through a whole bunch of effects. Ideally, the reviews should actually be even simpler. It should just go straight into an effects pedal and an amplifier with as little clutter as possible to make you guys hear what the amp or guitar or pedal sound like. So I don't need to go crazy. But there is different ways to actually go about recording, and sometimes you don't need crazy stuff. A lot of you have asked me this, so I just thought I'd mention that to you guys, so different ways of actually being able to do this, in case you're trying to do this at home. I've been trying to get a good setup for years, and I've never actually been able to get a good sound till recently. Now I feel that the hardware has caught up with the software, and the price has become way more affordable, where you can get a Scarlett for a couple $100 and be on your way and actually be able to capture some really good sound. And nothing beats miking an amp. Even if you try and go direct with the DIs, it doesn't sound the same. You have to crank it up, you got to mic it, and that's how you're going to get the best sound, in my opinion. So if any of you are playing around with that at home, try that. It really makes a big difference. One of the other things that I discovered when I was doing a big cleanup in my garage is I have like 3 boxes full of magazines. Premier Guitar, Vintage Guitar, like all these old guitar magazines. Pulled them out the other day and I started to go through them. And they're still pretty cool. There's a lot of good information in here. Look, check the... This is 2018. So who was on the cover? Ed O'Brien of Radiohead. And what were they talking about here? There were 3 songs: Van Halen, Mean Streets, Kim Crimson, 21st Century Schizoid Man, Doc Watson, Blackberry Blossom. And, you get the tabs. They're great for that. That's one of the reasons why I keep the magazines. I don't want to throw them out, is the tabs. The majority of the magazine, honestly, is ads. I mean, every page is an ad. But, I mean, it's pretty cool to go back and look at some of the stuff. Some magazines are better than others and kind of are still interesting to read, while others are kind of like, you don't need those anymore. I don't know why this message got blocked, but neck pickups are great, full with rich harmonics and no mud. I set my bridge pickup with maximum fatness, and I do not have to go back and dumb down my neck sound to match. I like to, whenever I do a setup with pickups and try and balance the pickup sounds, I always start with the neck first, because that's the neck is the one that gives me the most heartburn. So I try to set the neck to sound the way I want it to sound, and then I adjust the bridge pickup to match. I just find that is an easier way to go about it for me. So guys, the top of the show, I had asked a question about, let's talk about issues that you're having with your guitars. I guess you guys have your guitars dialed in the way you like it, because I don't see any other questions for me. So that's great. Paul also says shipping delays are getting longer and longer. I consider 6 weeks the new average. I've waited as long as 3 months. Manufacturing delays are even longer. Me too. The stuff that I've ordered has taken a long time. Even stuff coming from the States, which normally gets to me in about 2 weeks. I've had some stuff that take as long as almost 2 months to arrive. So go back to some of the questions that I missed earlier here. Fat Philosopher says, Tony, give it a week and you will get used to the Steinberger. Yeah, I know. I did. I mean, it was just the initial feeling right off the bat was weird. But then, yeah, you get used to anything, right? For the Optima string brand with gold, twice quality, fresh compared to 13 sets. I don't know what we're talking about here. Sorry, guys. I'm just going through some messages here. Anything else you guys want me to check out, actually, in terms of gear? Anything cool that's been coming out? What I've read recently is that there's Prince's Strat is going on sale. When I say on sale, I mean auction. He had a gold leaf custom shop Strat that was made for him for a show that he opened. He wanted to have it for an opening event. And they're actually auctioning off the prototype of that guitar. So what ended up happening is that Fender made the Strat for him. It was basically made of gold leaf. And what ended up happening is they sent it to him to try out. He sent it back with some suggestions. He wanted them to change the pickups. He wanted them to change the neck profile. And they kept it. And I guess never actually, I don't know what happened. They kept that guitar and they've had it with them ever since. And he specifically said that they should never sell that guitar. It was made specifically for him and he didn't want it to go into mass production. But after he passed, they decided now what they're going to do is auction it off and see if they can, I guess, raise some money for that guitar. Should be interesting to see how much it auctions off for. The last guitar that they auctioned off for Prince sold for $500,000. So I'm expecting this one to sell for probably around that much too. Well, we should see. I mean, it should be interesting to check it out. Fox Guitars Rock says, your tips, Tony, have me being able to adjust my guitars no problem, so they are just as I like them and no complaints. The only advice I have for you guys is when you start off adjusting your guitars, the thing that I see most people that are not used to doing this do wrong is that they'll start off adjusting things in the wrong order. And if you do that, you're kind of chasing your tail. What you want to do is before you start adjusting anything on your guitar is make sure that the neck relief on the guitar is perfectly flat. You can get a ruler for that. I don't have one here, else I'd show it to you. It's basically a ruler with some notches for the frets so that you can set it on the actual fretboard and not your frets. And you can see what kind of relief you have, if there's any relief. You bring that down to 0. You make it perfectly flat. Once that's done, then you can see how much space you have under your strings, whether or not you have any string buzz, and you can basically determine whether or not you need to put any relief into your neck. You will do that next, right? If you still have string buzz, then you would start looking at other things such as the nut, whether the slots are cut too deep or whatnot. But generally, if the relief on the neck is right, you're having enough clearance under the strings, then you're able to not get any buzz. Then you would go ahead and set your intonation and make sure that everything else is good. A lot of times I end up seeing people that have fret buzz. They'll start off playing around with the height of the bridge saddles when their neck relief is all out of whack, and that's not going to help you. Because that at the end, the saddles are kind of the fine-tune adjustment, right? You want to make sure that it's basically working well with the neck relief. And then, of course, the intonation has to be done. So if you don't do the intonation, so there's definitely a set method to all of this that you need to follow. And if you follow that order, you're usually going to be okay. So I'm glad my tips have helped you guys. I have put some videos out there documenting this stuff, but it just takes a lot of time to get used to. But there's also some great books that you can buy. that will be able to give you the proper advice and tell you exactly how much space should be, underneath your strings for your relief. But honestly, it's best to go by feel and by sound. Like if I'm going through the neck and I'm playing the strings and I hear a buzz, depending on where it is, whether it's upper registry or lower registry, it'll already tell me where the problem could be. If you're getting buzzing when you're strumming your strings open, then it means it's probably at the nut. If you're getting buzzing when you're fretting your strings, then it's obviously going to be in the neck. The frets might have to be leveled because the nut is out of the equation at that point, right? So there's different ways of experimenting with these things. But once you get the process under your fingers, it's always pretty much the same. What are we looking at here? Ordered lap steel from Guitar Center, got it in 2 days. God bless the USA. Yeah, it's always good. When I buy on eBay, most of the time I try and buy from US or Canadian sellers, because if I buy from China, you're looking at like a 2 month wait, which makes no sense. And it's funny because even if you buy some stuff off Amazon, a lot of the sellers are from China. So you're thinking you're going to be able to get the stuff in 2 days because of like Amazon Prime, but really you look at the details and it says it's going to take 2 months to get to you. So keep that in mind when you're ordering your parts, and also encourage local retail if you can. If I can buy it in a store, I'll pay a little bit extra, but I'll support the store. Throwback PAF or T-top clones are $470 a set. Makes me think hard about trying Monty's. That's expensive, man. That's freaking expensive. I wouldn't spend that kind of money, unfortunately. I mean, I'm sure they're great. I'm sure they're great pickups, but talk to Monty, man. You won't regret it. I mean, the biggest issue when you come across a set that sounds so great is then you're kind of shell shocked. You don't want to try anybody else's pickups, because I've tried so many other pickups that are good, that they're not necessarily bad, but they're not as good. So you feel like, oh man, I could have just paid a little extra and gotten like the great pickups. Hopefully, it still ends up in the hands of someone that truly appreciates it, not just some filthy rich dude that hangs it on his wall to show it off. Yeah, you're talking about the Prince guitar, right? Yeah, I understand. I don't know who's going to end up getting it, but yeah, unfortunately, $500,000 or so, that's a lot of money for a guitar. Paul's giving some advice on the background regarding some pedals here. He says, yes, I have all three of the LPD Marshall pedals. I have kept in touch with Lawrence for years. If you can afford it, get the 87, then add a Tech N-Tone Turbo Nona second, then get the LPD third. So Paul's giving a lot of good advice here. I'm not familiar with those pedals, so I can't pipe in and give you my advice. Bruce says, getting back to the Dremel, took a piece of aluminum stock, marked fret locations, used the Dremel to cut the fret notches, and voila. I did the kind of the same thing on my first version. What I did was I took an aluminum uh, ruler. The ones you can buy at, the ones that seamstresses use. The aluminum ruler, nothing fancy. You can get this for like $5, whatever it is, $3 or $5. And I did the same thing. I basically cut notches on the fret location. One was for the Strat, the other one was for Les Paul. Marked them with a marker, cut out the notches. Works like a charm. It's basically the same. Then eventually I upgraded to a better quality one, because I felt that the aluminum was a little bit bendy. So I got something that was a little bit more rigid and it works better. And I didn't pay a lot of money. I didn't get this from StewMac. I bought it from eBay. And it works great. You're welcome, Ed. I'm happy that my tips are helping you out. A gold leaf Strat is still a Strat. At that point, it's all about flamboyance and should be hung from a wall. And if you're rich enough to win the auction, well, smoke them if you got them. Or you can just get yourself a Squire, go out to your art store, buy some gold leaf paper for like 10 bucks, and make your own. And then take all that extra cash that you saved and buy yourself some good cigars and smoke them. You know, that's how I look at it. And Paul's sharing some secret hot information. He says, if you wait a few weeks, the 87 Deluxe will be out. Yes, it is an insider info. You are the first to know. Shh, don't tell anybody, guys. What do you think of the Firefly Telecaster? That's Barry asking this question. Barry, I haven't tried the Firefly Telecaster because I can't get them here. I know that they sell on Amazon and they don't seem to ship to Canada, so they're not available. So I can't really try them out. But some people claim that they're okay. And Rich says that I just picked up a Firefly thin line telly, pretty decent for the price, and we'll be modding it soon. I think that's basically what people are buying these guitars for. They're buying them to basically mod them. Um, so that's a good option. The other stuff that you can get to mod for a decent price would be the Guitar Fetish stuff. You can probably get a decent body and start with that and end up modding that if you're looking at creating your own parts caster. That should be cool. It should definitely keep you busy. I haven't been looking at too many amps lately because of the fact that I'm pretty happy with what I have. I've been playing the ones I got, and they're keeping me pretty happy. Went back to the Friedman, that guy, just the other day after not playing it for a while, and just cranked it, and it just sounds massive. Um, I really like the Friedman stuff. I think they're even coming out with a new one, or they've released a new one recently called the Naked, and I think they're coming out with a newer version or an updated version of that one. Great amps. I don't know if Dave Friedman definitely has a great ear for tone, and more and more people that I know are switching over to the Friedmans. At least the ones that are still playing guitars and amps. A lot of artists have switched over to the Fractal and these digital processors, but the ones that are not playing digital processors have a lot of them have switched over to Friedman amps, and there's a reason for it, man. They just sound so good. Um, just sound amazing. I don't think I'm ever gonna sell that one. I've been looking at Marshalls for a long time, and that one is just it's just unfortunately too very loud, but I don't care. I'm keeping it. It doesn't have it does have a low power switch, but it doesn't have an attenuator, and you really have to make it like breathe. If I was a lottery billionaire, I would pay big bucks for Prince's Telecaster. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the stuff that Prince was using per se. If I had to buy, let's say, a guitar from an artist, and we're talking like lots of money, I'd hold off for Jimmy Page's Les Paul, if ever it actually goes on the auction block, which probably won't ever happen. But that's the one I would be saving my money for. If ever it pops up on eBay, I'd be bidding on that one. I have a gold on gold Fender USA Strat. I was lucky to buy it from a charity shop at a substantial price, complete with tweed case. An unplayed condition is still it is still unplayed. Alan, that's a sweet looking guitar, gold on gold. Are you keeping it to basically hand it down to somebody, or did you? Since you're not playing it, it's kind of like kind of sad to not be able to play your guitars, but I know when you have something that's really great looking that you want to keep it in mint condition. So I don't know how, I don't know if I even have the courage not to touch it. After a while, you definitely want to play that guitar. Like if I'd buy Jimmy Page's guitar, it would be a museum piece. It would be kind of like looking at the Mona Lisa for me. But from time to time, I would probably have to like take it down and play it for sure. Probably will never leave the house or the safe, whatever. Vox Guitars Rock says, I wouldn't buy $1 million guitar off eBay, LOL. It's just a figure of speech. You know what I mean. Sleaze Bay is not necessarily the best place to make investments. All right, guys. Well, listen, it's basically almost 2 hours we've been yapping here, so I'm gonna start off by winding down. If you guys have any other questions for me, please ask. If not, then definitely check out the sponsor once again, amplifiercovers.com. Check out Monty's Guitars pickups if you're looking at some really cool pickups. There'll be some other videos that are going to be popping up this week that I've recorded for you guys. Hopefully I'll be able to expedite the videos. I know things have been a little bit slow coming on my channel lately. That's just because I've been busy with other things. But there's still going to be more stuff coming your way. So obviously stay tuned for that. Peter says, I like the JJ20 for cleans and classic rock sounds. However, not sure it's good for 80s style metal like Van Halen. Do you think the HT20 combo is better suited for high gain stuff than the JJ20 is? Yes. Peter, my answer to you is yes. I think if you're specifically going for the 80s sound, then the HT20 definitely would be better for you. And also cheaper, because I think it's geared for that kind of sound. But if you're going for more of a classic rock sound, the JJ is great. And I do think, however, you're saying it's not good for Van Halen, but I tend to disagree because you can don't overlook the clean channel. Don't overlook the clean channel, because a lot of people will go straight to the dirty channel, try and get that Van Halen sound. What you can do is go to the clean channel, get a nice full clean, and then hit it with your favorite Brown Sound in a Box pedal, and you're going to have a killer Van Halen sound. It really is a question of just tweaking it a little bit. So don't jump to conclusions. If you have that amp, you can definitely get that tone. If you don't have the amp already, then maybe and you want to get something a little bit easier, then get the HT20. Fat Philosopher is asking me, you don't want Page's double neck? I would take it. I'd never say no to it. I definitely take the double neck. I wouldn't want it as much as the Les Paul, though, I'm going to be honest. But yeah, I'd take the double neck for sure. If I had to choose an artist guitar that I could afford buying from an auction, it would be Steve Vai's Evo or Flow. Yeah, that's an iconic guitar for sure as well. Still not up for me. Still not up there with Jimmy Page. And Strat 5150 says, "Give me Clapton's 335." That's another one. That's a sweet one for sure. I don't know if he actually auctioned that off. I don't think he did. You know, that's definitely a sweet one. Fat Philosopher says, I think I'll get Jimmy Page's Telecaster because I like Dazed and Confused tone. That's, anything from Jimmy Page, man. It'll be worth a fortune, including his amps. Imagine if his amps go on sale or on auction. Robert Johnson's acoustic would be my grail. Oh, yeah. You got to be careful with that one, though. You don't know who you're dealing with, ultimately. Could have some mojo around that guitar. Anyways, guys, always a pleasure talking to you. You made my Sunday a lot more fun. I appreciate you guys sticking around and chit-chatting with me. Tune in again next Sunday where we'll have more stuff to talk about. There'll be more videos on the channel, so please subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you like this weekend's chit-chat. I really appreciate all the support you guys give me. Grab some swag if you haven't already done so. I put in a coupon code A2G32 for you guys, so you can get an additional 10% if you want to grab something there. Feel free, make yourself at home, and that's it. That's it for today, guys. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Stay safe, keep playing, and keep buying gear so we can talk about it. And see you again next Sunday. Take it easy, boys.